This is Dr. Evelyn Hill with Shades in Justice podcast. Hey, we're so excited you decided to stop by. Hey, you can catch us every Wednesday evening, 8:30 Central Standard Time or 9:30 Eastern Time. We want to see you right here at Positive Power Christian Radio. Again, this is Dr. Evelyn Hill with Shades in Justice podcast, a chance where you can hear about justice and injustices here in our country. Again, Dr. Evelyn Hill with Shades in Justice podcast. Hello and welcome to Shades in Justice podcast. This is your host, Dr. Evelyn Hill, and I am so excited to have you with us on today. We have a very special guest all the way from San Diego, California, Miss Felicity Anderson. So we're going to ask her to share a little bit about herself. We're going to be talking about the injustice of homelessness. So, Felicity, we're anxious to hear from you.
Well, thank you, Dr. Hill, for having me. Again, my name is Felicity. I'm born and raised San Diego, California. Spent a couple of years in Los Angeles where I really honed in on my love for advocacy with the homeless population. And now I'm here in Missouri, working still with families that are experiencing poverty. And so I've had a very untraditional route when it comes to my journey with social work and with social advocacy. As I mentioned, coming from San Diego, finishing high school, I went straight to college, wanting to do what was right, in the standard of what is right. And quickly, I realized this is about to be a waste of my money because I have no idea what I want to do. But what I did know I love is the fact that every Friday morning, my mother and I would be at the soup kitchens where we would be serving individuals living in downtown San Diego on the streets. We would be doing worship with them. We would be praying with them. My mom would always give a word. And so that was my upbringing. And then in the middle school, my father led a church in downtown San Diego where it was all individuals that were experiencing homelessness at the time. And I was the worship leader. And so this community has always been a part of my family. It's always been a part of the foundational pieces for me. And so when I dropped out of college, the opportunity arose for me to move to Los Angeles to do a leadership school, specifically working with people experiencing homelessness, victims coming out of human trafficking. And I did that. And so it has sparked a long journey of advocacy and social work. And I just finished my degree here at KU and working toward that master's program. And so I'm just excited for all of the opportunities here, all the privileges that I get to experiences of meeting you and things like that. So that's a little bit about me, and I'm excited to be here.
Well, thank you, Felicity. I am so excited to have you in this podcast today, because not often do we have young people who have served the homeless while they were growing up with parents. So your story is very unique. You could have gone the other way where you didn't want to be around the homeless, but instead you've taken on the mantle of your parents to extend services and love to individuals who are experiencing homelessness. So we applaud you for the great work that you have done, even as a young person, and for the work you're doing now. Now, I met you while being at Avenue of Life. And one of the things I must say about Avenue of Life, they do a wonderful job of serving the homeless, and specifically the families of kids in schools. And so we grew that program on the Kansas City, Kansas side. And now the executive director has moved it over to include other communities. So would you like to share a little bit about your role now at Avenue of Life and kind of where it's at and what you have been experiencing?
Absolutely. So I got the privilege of meeting you as I came in last August as an intern, finishing my degree at KU. I picked Avenue of Life to finish my practicum at, and started there, fell in love with the mission, fell in love with the goal, fell in love with the families. And 2 months later was promoted to full-time case manager. Apparently I did a good job. I supported them to the point that I was asked to go ahead and help launch the soft pilot of the Missouri program, empowerment within the KCPS school district. And so I took on that opportunity, and I have seen such a beautiful success. We've gone from having 32 individuals on the caseload just within the soft pilot program. And these are families experiencing chronic homelessness, living in hotels for 5+ years, having 7+ evictions on their name, felonies that they've had since they were 19. Now they're in their 30s. There's so many different lists of barriers that I face within the Missouri. And then the market for housing is what it is at this moment. And still did intensive case management with 32 families, we were able to get 22 of those families housed. And so that is a huge success within the first 5 months of this pilot program. And so now I was promoted again to the coordinator throughout through the program. And I'm embarking now on continuing to build those relationships with the families, deepening that connection of support, and deepening the connection of support within the partners and those relationships to really hone in on, I understand the heart to serve as Avenue of Life, and now I get to understand the heart to build community within organizations and nonprofits and churches that I get to do now in my new role, as a coordinator. So I'm excited for all there is to come. And that's a little bit about the journey thus far.
Wow, that's exciting. And congratulations on your promotions. That is it's so rewarding, and just to be able to get people housed with, I like the way you said it, the affordable housing, the way that it is to actually still be able to get folks housed is amazing. So thank you for that great work. So you mentioned San Diego and LA and the homeless populations there. What did you kind of learn from those populations in those two different communities that either you see again now with some of the families and their challenges and barriers, or any differences?
Sure. Yeah, I will say that the demographic of the homeless population from California to Missouri are vastly different in so many ways. And so it's even different from San Diego to LA. And I'll start there. So being raised on the San Diego side, we're around beaches, there's a different appreciation for respect of the land and things like that. And so there is a high population of the homeless individuals, but there's not as high of a population as there is in Los Angeles, California. And a lot of the homeless individuals that we see on the San Diego side are veterans. We have a large veterans population within San Diego. That's where we have some of the largest bases. And so the largest population of individuals that are experiencing homelessness in San Diego, a majority of the time are going to be the veterans that have served for the states. And so on the other end of LA is the city that you come to with the biggest dreams. You have people who come to be actors. You have people who come to be jazz musicians and hip hop artists. And a lot of times the dream ends once they get to LA. And so when you meet populations of individuals that are existing on Skid Row, which is the largest 54 blocks, I believe, in Los Angeles, that is just places where homeless individuals are living downtown Los Angeles. And a majority of those individuals are musicians, they're professors, they're also veterans, they're teachers. And so they're individuals who came from different places and either got caught up in the drug epidemic that happened within Los Angeles, or whatever it may be. And so it is such a smorgasbord of individuals that are experiencing homelessness in San Diego, different ethnicities, different backgrounds, religions, and so I can't even put my hand on this is what the population looks like, because I like California is a very much of I don't like to call it a melting pot. I call it a salad, because it's so many different cultures mixed into one, but no one loses the touch of who they are, And so in LA, the homeless population is that as well. There are individuals of every walk of life that you'll come across that they were one step away from homelessness. It's a cosmetology doctor who had one trip off of the wrong drug, and now he's experiencing homelessness, and so that opened my eyes to so much. And then coming here, it's a very interesting to see homelessness in this way, because it's very honed in on specifics. We have individuals that might have experienced immigration. We have the Black and Brown community that have been impacted by oppression. We have the different groups of the LGBTQ trans community who's being impacted by homelessness. And so there's such honed in parts of individuals touched by oppression that a lot of times you're seeing facing more homelessness here. And so there is a lot of vast differences, and I'm sorry, Dr. Hill, I'm just getting a little off. And so, yes, yes, there's a lot of differences. I get caught up a lot in thinking about LA, because I'm like, you couldn't pinpoint one form of homelessness, whereas here we work with families. My focal point is so specific in my work here in Kansas City. And so that's what I see. Whereas in LA, I worked with homeless teens. I worked with homeless grandmothers. I worked with individuals who served the country, who worked in Congress, and so it's just, my eyes to it, it looks different. The perspective looks different because everyone is so close to it.
Wow. What a breadth of information that was. It's interesting that you said with all the ports in San Diego, the largest number of homeless were the veterans. And again, I'm always challenged when I hear that veterans are being homeless, because they have fought for our country. And if anybody ought to have somewhere to live, in my mind, it ought to be the veterans. However, I do understand with PTSD, along with other mental health concerns and challenges versus the high price of living there. In San Diego and LA, I could understand how it's easily done to fall into the trap of homelessness. And did you say 64 blocks of 54. Homelessness? 54. Wow. Yes. That's a lot. And then, like you said, here in the Kansas City area, you've worked mostly with families, but out there you worked largely with individuals, be it veterans or teens, and not very many children out there, evidently, in that homeless arena. Okay. All right. Well, thank you for sharing that. Tell us about the folks you were able to help when you were in LA and San Diego. You mentioned that your folks kind of brought you into that, and you was a praise and worship leader in your dad's church, and most of the congregation was homeless?
Yes. So my parents have pastored in multiple places throughout my childhood. But for a bulk of it, it was within the community downtown, that were a majority of homeless individuals, that would come to our church. And so I saw my dad not have a separation between how he loved the individuals that were experiencing homelessness. I monitored my mom not have a separation with how she loved the individuals experiencing homelessness. And so to me, it's second nature, it's a part of who I am to treat everyone like they're human, because I saw it. I was fed the example of it. And so having that upbringing and then going to Los Angeles, quickly, I was indoctrinated to being able to run the Friday Skid Row sites, where I would lead a group of 50 to 100 individuals, and we would serve the people on Skid Row Friday nights. I led the outreach programs for Compton, Crenshaw, and Leimert Park. And so that was the Adopt a Block, where we would go in to these communities. And our main goal is to build relationships and to build connection and to be there for the long haul, And so the organization that I was with was the Los Angeles Dream Center. And so they've been around for over 28 years.
Yes.
They've been doing this work for over 28 years. They have loved this community. And what we see is that when you put time into the investment, you get the people's affection, you get the people's trust, like you get to pour into these people because you've taken time to build relationship. Mm-hmm. And so that was what I did on a daily basis in Los Angeles. I was building relationships with these people, with these mothers and grandmothers. I was able to help do outreach for the gang members who were a part of the gangs and the Bloods and the different individuals who maybe might be 9 years old and they joined a gang because they were the oldest now in the family after watching their father be murdered, And so being able to just build relationships, like there is so much you can do. And that's kind of that has been my mentality of all it takes is a listening ear, all it takes is an opportunity to let somebody share with you their story, because that a lot of times we take the humanity out of homelessness, we call it, we say the homeless people, the homeless population, but they were a man before they were homeless. They were,
that's right.
Before they were homeless, they were a friend,
yes.
brother, and so that has been my perspective. And that's even been my journey and intentionality in working with the homeless populations is putting their humanity back in the conversations.
Mm-hmm. So I think very often we, the community, and that is wherever we, the community is, I think we have often labeled homeless people a certain way, therefore we treat them a certain way, and we think every homeless person's story is the same. However, like you were just saying, it could be very, very different. One of the things I was amazed at when I first went into understanding homelessness was the average age of the homeless is 7 years old, which is totally different from what was in my mind. I thought in my mind, when I see the older gentlemen, either black or white, I haven't seen too many Hispanic that I knew of that were Hispanic here in our community. But when I see the individuals, for years I thought, okay, they just need to get themselves together. They need to get off of drugs, and they need to get a job, when often it's a whole lot more than that. And so by you just sharing some of the circumstances of some of the individuals that you worked with, it solidifies the fact that we don't know their stories, and who are we to judge? In fact, we need to take on a different mindset, which is, what can we do to help? What can we do to help? Many of us can't bring them in our homes for various reasons, but we hear never give money to the homeless. We hear, just drive by them because when the end of the day, they're going to get in their Mercedes-Benz and drive off to their luxurious apartment. But come on, everybody, all these people we done seen, everybody's not driving a Mercedes-Benz and driving off into the sunset.
Right. A majority. That's the 1%. That's the 1%.
So I'm so glad. It's refreshing to hear your whole perspective around homelessness. And so how are the unaccompanied youth helped in our society today? So one of the things you mentioned was you saw quite a few youth out there. So what's going on with the young population, and how can we do a better job of helping them? But first of all, just what is your perspective about what's really going on with the youth?
Sure. I will first start by saying we exist in a time where we have a very courageous group of young adults and young people and teens that are taking on a journey that possibly maybe our elders might have feared, but that was the intentionality of being true to themselves, and despite of what being true to yourself looks like, that's consistently evolving, that's changing, but in the moment. And so being true to yourself, being for the teens, for the youth now, that's a higher percentage of individuals who are coming out within the LGBTQIA community. You have teens that are experiencing transitioning, being a part of the trans community. You have individuals who have existed in intergenerational poverty for years, seeing their great-grandmother, their grandmother, their mother, thus existing in that same pattern, that same barrier. And so there are so many different reasons still on why unaccompanied youth is even a thing, to think that we have vulnerable children, we have vulnerable teens, we have children who do not have the support and the resources to gain a home, that's heartbreaking. And that there are individuals, there are people who are working to change that. And so I think that is an ongoing, a growing thing. But for me, I'm seeing a big group of individuals who are experiencing. So my time in LA was the trans community, was the LGBTQ community, was the Black community, Hispanic community at times, and the white community at times. These were people who came in, thankfully, within the Los Angeles Dream Center. They had their unaccompanied youth floor. And so we had mentors who lived and residents who lived on the floor with these teens and with these youth, and they did job training with them. They did finance and budgeting. They did mentorship, discipleship. And so we saw children who the family system was broken, and they created family within the body of Christ, within the organization themselves. And so there are other resources. There are other organizations that are doing that. Is it limited? Of course. There's still those teens that are going homeless. There still are those teens that are falling victim to human trafficking. There are still a lot of vulnerable individuals that are facing, those fears that we might have as a society. But yeah, I'm not sure if that answers the question. I'm not sure. I went on a tangent.
You did good. One of the things you mentioned was the transgender population of unaccompanied youth. I love the way you started out with this piece. You said the youth of today are very courageous. They believe in going after what they want to do now versus later. And so they are not afraid to step out into their journey in different ways than what other generations possibly have done. So I think that's interesting that they are courageous, but I also think it's interesting that they're willing to receive the help. They're willing to receive the help because you mentioned several different ways, jobs and a place to stay. And so it's like, if we are able to somehow help them, then by us helping to mentor them and love them without judgment and just move forward with them, we can definitely see them progress. And that's the whole goal.
And because I will add that no one wants to be alone. Right. No child wants to experience a life alone. And so to create first trust, because a lot of times their trust has been stripped from them because they've given that to people who have harmed them. And so regaining that, but ultimately every person is desiring community. And so I find it easier to work with the youth. I find it easier to work with children because even though they might have experienced being crushed from societal pressures, oppression of any sort, there's still that I will get up again, there's resilience, there's attachment to it, there's hope still attached to it. And so ultimately, the biggest thing is I know everyone wants belonging. Everyone wants to be loved. And that's what makes it easy. Yeah.
Yes. And it sounds like that's one of your giftings, is to share. You don't mind listening. You don't mind taking that time out with the family, and you don't have this. Well, what's your problem? And let's hurry up. Let's talk. I got 5 minutes. And you willing to give of yourself to really help those individuals. So thank you so much for that. So beside just providing housing and I think you mentioned jobs, and we talked about other resources that you have made available for families. One of the things that you mentioned that I know is a great barrier for families and individuals is warrants for arrest, license that have been suspended, no money for insurance. And if we could provide those resources, then families can move forward. Do you still have quite a few families who are struggling in that arena?
I do. There's so many families that are struggling in that area. And thankfully, through the organization that I'm with, we have partnerships that are helping with warrant relief, we work with Justice in the School that is helping with the housing issues with evictions and things like that. But one thing that I would say that I've seen more than anything is how one speeding ticket can ruin an entire life. One speeding ticket. I've seen, wow. I had one of our families who one speeding ticket they received at the age of 19. And because they were unaware of the steps to go about paying it off, going to their court date, figuring out when their court date was, they didn't have that support. So it became a warrant, and then the warrant became an arrest. And then one arrest became 2 arrests. And that became the pipeline of being indoctrinated within the system that then became a prison sentence, and so now the barrier is finding employment, but it all started with one speeding ticket, and so there are so many families that I come in contact with that if only they knew the revenues, if they knew the system, if only they had the education behind this, what could have been a small barrier, which then now has infiltrated itself in your entire life. If only they had the resources, and so absolutely every day when I receive a referral, it's usually someone that has been touched either by the criminal justice system, the prison system, whatever it may look like. And there's still hope for those people. There are still, that mother was now housed, and so despite of she's now employed. And so there is opportunities, but it's connection to the right resources and the proper education that can help them get what they had been missing all along.
And if you need any other resources in that arena, please reach out to me because we may know of some other opportunities also. And that you ought to write that book. The book name
it's gonna happen.
The book name, If Only They Knew. If only you said one ticket destroyed a person's life for the next several years, just one ticket, because they didn't have the information or the knowledge or a support system to help them. And sometimes even with having a support system and all that, if you have, say, a mental disability where you just want to do it all yourself, even though you can't, but this disability won't allow you to let others in to help you because of paranoia or whatever, that could be a real stumbling block too. So, wow, that is something. Just one speeding ticket just messed up their whole life for years. And it escalated. So with every new warrant, in every new step, it costs more and more money for you or that individual, for the court system. So we're making the system rich.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're making the system
so
rich.
Well.
Yeah.
We do that so well.
Yes, we do. So we need to get off of that circus wheel and begin to, and that's another thing. How do we help families by providing resources for them? So what I mean by that is, say I got a speeding ticket, I cannot afford to pay for it because I got 3 kids, my rent is due, my insurance is due, food is going up. Where do I go? So that is my question. We've been trying to figure out right now. I guess there's the 211 phone number with United Way, and there's also 311, I think, with the Unified Government of Wyandotte County. And often we're still challenged to even get, good, accurate information from even those 2 sources, but at least it's something.
Sure. And I will say that it's probably hard to find those resources because there aren't a lot, they're very limited. And I will say a group who's doing it well would be KC Warren Relief Project. And so they have been phenomenal to work with. They have helped a great number of our families thus far. And it's gone from, and their limitation is only municipal, and so it's seeing that there's still the stipulations of what can be assisted with, and so I would say the biggest concern is the lack of resources that we have as it relates to helping individuals get their records expunged, whatever that may look like, helping get those payments made, figuring out the court dates, I think that is why case management is a beautiful thing, because a lot of times when you see case managers, they're really building these skills with these individuals. We're doing the legwork with these families to teach them how to be proactive on their own, how to go to Caseworthy or CaseNet and find their information and know what is on their record, what could be a barrier causing them to get employment or residing in a home, And so although there are lack of resources made public, there are people, there are individuals, there are social workers and social service agents or whatever it may be, who is doing the footwork every day to make those opportunities and resources come available to individuals.
Yes, and thank you for sharing that. And another piece, and I could hear individuals talk about this with the homeless, but once they do get everything squared away, say they got a house, they got a job, they've gotten their warrants and arrests expunged and paid for, and they're up to date with insurance and all of that. What about budgeting? How do they maintain a budget, and how do they pay their utility bills after you've helped get them paid? What's your comment on that?
Well, let me start by first exposing myself that I don't get it right all the time. For learning how to be financially literate and budget well is a lifelong learned skill for me. And so I am breaking my own mentalities when it comes to being under poverty, and so, and that is a life journey for me. And so there is hope for families walked through especially intergenerational poverty to become financially independent, become financially literate and educated. And it takes time, It takes time with me. It takes sitting down with a mother who her guilt caused her to spend a lot of money that could have gone to a bill or could have gone to rent because she wanted to make a moment happen for her kids because they've lost out on so much, I'm not going to strip her of the opportunity because it already happened. And now she behind on rent. What we going to do about it? And so it's having those conversations of accountability. At the same time, it's understanding I am human and I haven't arrived yet and I'm learning and we're learning together. And so you felt the sting of what it felt like to know that you got your babies these gifts, but you almost didn't have a a home to come back to.
That's right. That's right.
And so it's making their life decisions reality, accountable, and giving grace, because they're not going to learn all of these things in a month, in sometimes 6 months, it's continual change. And then there will be regression, that's the cycle of change, and
right.
then and so for me, it's the finance part is the grace for me because I need it, and so I can't teach something that I'm not walking out myself. And I know that I'm extending grace to me when I make mistakes, when I buy that extra pair of shoes that I shouldn't have, budget for that week, but I learn, and so that's what it looks like when it comes to even teaching financial literacy with the families that I'm working with is you are bound to not get it right every time. And let's figure it out next month. Let's make one progression next month.
That's excellent. Yeah. That's excellent because it gives them a goal, something to work toward, and it allows a mistake.
Yes.
It allows a mistake. And so if I make this mistake this month and I've got to cut other things out because I made this mistake. So next month I'm going to be much more conscious and make better choices.
Yeah, you can have accountability and grace at the same time.
Yes.
That is how I work with my family. I'm not going to brush it over, but at the same time, let's figure out a plan. How can I support you do better? That's
right. That's right. Well, Felicity, this has been wonderful. You have been such a great guest for me. This is a new season for me. This is in August of 2023, and August is the 8th month, and 8 in biblical terms is the month for new beginnings. And so we're walking it out today, and I'm just saying that in the future, we will be having some new beginnings, but this is a new beginning for us right here at Shades and Justice podcast and you. And we're just excited for what's to come. We're excited what is already happening, but I'm real excited for what's happening right now as we explore the impact that we can make for the homeless. So thank you again for being such a wonderful host. And until next time, this is Dr. Evelyn Hill with Shades in Justice podcast. See you soon. Bye. Okay.
Hey, my name is Davis and I'm from Haiti, but I'm living in Dominican Republic. I'm here, Positive Power 21. Jerry was live worldwide.